Welcome to the Dan Bradbury podcast. Dan, thank you for letting me be a part and a co-host to your wonderful show. Today's an interesting one. We are going to be talking not just about one business strategy, not two, not three. We're going to give a whole 6 of them, if not more, that are directly related to your upcoming CEO mastermind.
Right. And it's less self-indulgent than it sounds, Topher, right? Because when we were prepping for this event, we try and make each event better than the last. And then when we were explaining it to our team, it was so good and potent, right? Trying to summarize the point, we realized there's significant value because this mastermind, Topher, is based upon principles, right? It's not tactical stuff that will go away. It's like, what are the principles that drive business growth? And we said, you know what? Just even explaining it and explaining those key principles are valuable in itself. So it kind of serves a dual purpose, but the significant value from these 6 principles, if you want to call them that, addressed in that way. And so let's go through.
All right, let's start the first one, which is doing a quarterly review every quarter, oddly enough, hence the term quarterly review.
Right. I mean, look, I think a lot of business owners shoot themselves in the foot because entrepreneurs, we're naturally shiny penny people, right? I was speaking just this morning to somebody who was pivoting from one business idea to another one, even though she owns a very successful business, right? And she's always done that for her 20-plus year career. And yet, how often do we fail to maximize the things that we're doing that are already working? Or buttressed against that. One is things we do work and then we stop it, or we move away from it, or we don't double down and exploit this significant competitive advantage we've got. And the inverse is also true. How often do we have something that's not working well when it's not obvious to us? Yeah. And it kind of creeps up, it's insidious, and it does significant damage to your business and bank account because you don't nip it in the bud soon enough. And so if you want to go forward faster, very often the best route is by looking back at where you've come. So the answer is simple. Are you taking the time to sit down and review your business quarter properly?
Yeah. And I think, by the way, the key thing that you just said there is, are you taking the time to sit down and do it? And I think it's one of the most seductive things that business owners get tempted by is, I'll do it next week. I'll get to it next week. Right. And before they know it, next week is already next quarter, right? This is where it reminds me a lot of and I know you're a fan of his books, Cal Newport, the book Deep Work, where he talks about how you can't work on your environment in your environment. You have to get out of that in order to think about it from a distance and a perspective. And I think that's one of the benefits of doing quarterly reviews outside of your day-to-day activities.
Well, just this morning, Topher, I did a private kind of board of advisors session for a client of 5 years who has just crushed it and had his most profitable year in business ever. So he's gone from, it's multi-7-figure revenues, but when he joined me was kind of low 6-figure profits, really got crushed and went into loss making during COVID. And this last year, he's just done his second consecutive year of over $500,000 in profit, which is awesome. Just epic. And he's up for renewal.
Especially for his business, by the way, because I know his business and the margins are very, very tight.
Yeah, it's a tough industry. Sorry, Topher. Fuck's sake.
Choking on your spit. I'll take over while you're dying. So unless he actually falls out of the desk, I'm going to just make fun of him and continue to laugh. But the reality is, man, if you aren't sitting back and reflecting at least once a quarter, before you know it, you're going to get to the end of your year and realize that you haven't taken the time to really evaluate what worked, what didn't work, what did you learn, what did you ignore, and how can you fix that?
Yeah, so the point I was going to make is he said to me, when he was up for the renewal conversation, yeah, of course I'm going to review because the value, there's tremendous value just in the prep. So I knew that it was going to be an epic session from the prep beat because he really thought about his business, what had worked, what wasn't working, where there were problems, etc. And he came prepared, so he was already primed, so we could immediately had a good jumping off point to talk about because he was clear about what the problems were and what the possible solutions were, and we were able to select the right ones for him. So, and he also said, he goes, I'm going to renew, Dan, because if I wasn't meeting you here, I wouldn't do this stuff. I should,
there's no
but
way
I wouldn't.
he would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, 100%. And that's typical of most business owners. Anyways, that's number one.
All right, number two is a cool one, by the way, which is something that I'm really excited about coming up for this CEO Mastermind, which is September 18th and 19th, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because it's your best kept secret, where every quarter you bring out somebody who's a contact of yours that's an expert in some element. We've had billionaires that have come in. We've had industry titans for social media platforms. This time, we've got a cybersecurity expert coming out who is currently involved right now, head of security for an AI company. Prior to that, she was with Salesforce in charge of their cybersecurity aspects. And she's going to be talking about something that I think we could address here in the podcast as well, which is specifically, what are you doing to protect your assets digitally in your business and financially, by the way, because nowadays finance is digital, right? With ransomware and everything else going on. So we should probably have a quick conversation about what are business owners doing to protect themselves. And I've got a theory on why they don't, but I'll have you share first, and then I'll follow up.
Well, I think there's 2 points as it relates to this. First of all, obviously it's topical, it's hot, it's AI and where the world's continuing to evolve. So there's massive opportunities and there's also significant risks and threats. And if you are not ahead of the curve, you're behind it. Like, you're never like the optimal number, right? So I think that while we could get into the nuances as it relates to cybersecurity and risks and opportunities as it goes to AI, some people are listening to this and they've switched off totally. They've mentally gone, no, this doesn't apply to me. And they may be right. They may be right. But I still kind of go, the second lesson is, what's the equivalent? So from a meta point of view, where do you need to build protection? The more your business grows, the more you've got something to lose, and the more you need to secure the beachhead so you've got a solid platform for growth. So that it does evolve with time. So the question is, are you getting outside inputs? I'm in favor of thinking, I'm biased and I've got a big ego. You need a big ego to be a business owner, but thinking that, well, I'll be the creator of everything. Well, I can't create everything unless I've got the raw material. Are you up to date with the latest ideas, opportunities, and threats?
Yes.
So you're educated with which to make a better decision. So that is the strategy. How are you making sure you stay abreast as to the opportunities and threats in the near future?
Yes, and that couples perfectly with my theory on why people don't pursue cybersecurity safety options. And it's because they always think they're something other than Goldilocks. They think they're either too small, or they're too big, or they're too poor, or they're too rich, right? They always think they're on one side of this thing, and they somehow think that black hat cyber terrorists are going for this perfect ideal spot that they don't happen to be in. I think that's one of the biggest myths. There is no unicorn for cyber attacks. They pick anybody and everybody they can get to because you never know what's going to happen. And this is just so important to make sure that you realize and acknowledge that there is no safe zone for this for this nowadays. You have to make sure that you're abreast and you're doing the things you need to do. I'll give you one perfect example of this, Dan, that I just learned yesterday from speaking with her. Do you know when one of the most popular times that companies get attacked from cybersecurity is? This blew me away.
I don't know. I mean, random dates, Christmas Day or midnight.
Right there, Christmas.
Okay, right.
Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, bank holidays, where there's a reduced level of staff at companies, is one of the biggest opportunities for cybersecurity because they know that they're probably on a skeleton crew. Not everybody's watching things closely. Even half the companies that are out there, if their people are on staff, they're probably half drunk anyway because they're partying. And it's one of the weakest times for small business owners is during that. Another time is when small business owners popularize and promote that they're on vacation. That's a perfect time for a cyber guy to go, this is a perfect company to attack. They're on vacation.
And just to attack this again from a slightly higher level, Topher, here's probably the point. On both the opportunity, on the upside and on the downside, accidents happen because people underestimate the risk. This will never happen to me.
Yes.
And the beauty inside of our mastermind programs is you see across so many people, there's always somebody in the group that's getting sued for something they didn't expect to happen. There's always somebody in the group over a year that's had their bank accounts frozen for some ridiculous, nefarious reason by the bank, right? Or the merchant account frozen or whatever. And the point is that the damaging things are the risks that you don't anticipate, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the same is true for the upside. Even though most business owners go, oh, yeah, I predicted this, I implemented this, and we got this massively amazing results. And that does happen sometimes. We have survival bias. So we look back and selectively choose the times when we did spot the trend, jumped on it, and got massive opportunity. In reality, I'd say 4 out of 5 times it's over when a business owner gets a significant windfall, it's fortuitous timing, circumstances, or transitioning into the next strategy, they try multiple things and one of them works. And often it's the thing that they weren't sure about, didn't think it would work, but it turns out to be a home run. So looking backwards with rose-tinted spectacles, they go, I'm such a genius. Oh, I predicted that. Well, the truth is, if you went back to the time, they're like, nah, let's try this thing out. But then when it had significant legs, they doubled down on it, right? And then they won big. So the point is, you need to stay abreast of both the threats and opportunities, and it's worthwhile getting outside input. So whether it's cybersecurity or not, there's always lessons to learn, and the benefits come from places that you don't expect them to.
Yeah, well said. By the way, for those who are watching or listening and you want to know who Dan's best kept secret is, you can reach out to Gabrielle at danbradbury.com and just send her a message and get on the phone with her, and she would be happy to share with you who it is. But if we told you now, it wouldn't be a secret. So
she is a rock star, though.
She is definitely a rock star. Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's move on to another rock star who's coming out as a guest speaker, who is also one of your clients at the next event for the CEO Mastermind, which is Alexis Kingsbury. You could probably brag on this guy all day long.
Yeah, I mean, look, Alexis is a rock star in many ways. Got built multiple very, very successful multi-seven-figure businesses, valuations, etc., across multiple companies. He's got a lot of expertise in AI as well. But actually, the topic that he's talking about this time, so far, which I think a lot of people, one of the things that he's talking about that I think is grossly underestimated. I mean, talk about a high value skill, a high impact skill that is significantly underappreciated and underutilized, is rapid experimentation.
Yes.
Right? In other words, he's going to share a strategy about how do you test theory. So tying into the last point, if you already knew exactly what to do, you'd do it and it all worked perfectly. But we live in the real world, right? So how do you speed up the feedback loop? And the answer is, whether it be marketing or operation, a whole host of things, it's like you come up with your best working theory and you test it, and then you test against that control, if you like, to see, can you beat the control and get a better option? Can you do high speed, low risk, low cost tests, which find you to get disproportionate results? So a few weeks ago on the podcast, Tova, we had it was a republish of a previous episode with Jay Abraham, and he spoke about how one headline, he tested 3 or 4 headlines. So for the same marketing spend, one got 10% better result, one got 30% better result, and one got something like a 1,600% better result. And the point is, Jay didn't know himself which option was going to be best, because if he just knew that one was so obviously better, he would have just gone with it from the get-go. So the value and the compounding results of revenues and profits comes from adding up these, to doing these tests and picking the winners and binning the losers. Picking the winners and binning the losers, right?
Sorry about that. My alarm went off.
Very unprofessional. So picking the winners and pinning the losers. So he like that's an example of it in terms of copywriting, but Alexis is talking about it much more broadly than that. How do you speed this up, or how do you, for example, leverage AI to speed this up safely so it's low cost, high speed, so you can figure out what's going to be the differences that make the difference that's going to drive revenues and drive profits.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Let's talk about the next segment, which is actually going to be a 2-parter coming up at the CEO Mastermind, but we can talk about it in one section here, which is something that you are an expert in, which is the ability to discern between what you should be doing versus what you shouldn't be doing as a business owner, and how easy it is to get tempted into the shouldn'ts instead of the shoulds.
Yeah, look, I mean, think about it this way. You've got 2 hats. So if you're listening to this podcast as a business owner, you've got 2 hats, right? You've got your operator hat, i.e. that's your MD hat, that's when you're in the business. and you've got your strategic owner, shareholder, boardroom hat, which is where all the wealth is created, right? So, said differently, you can make good money with a job. I'm not one of these people that said, "Oh no, people who have jobs are idiots." No, you can make tremendous wealth.
Steve Ballmer did very well with his job.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And Tim Cook hasn't done badly either. So, right, like in terms of like salaries. Now, don't get me wrong. Somebody listens to this goes, "Yeah, no, but they really made the money from their stock options and their stock," and that would be true. But the point is, they were still multi-millionaires with their job.
Yes.
Right. And so, for most people listening to this, you're both. Inside this training company, I'm also the CEO. I'm the MD, right? I do have other companies where I'm purely a shareholder, but in this company, I'm operational. So the fact is, you coexist. You might want to extract yourself, but I'm not going to be so ridiculous. I think it's idiotic, arcane for when people go, "Oh, only work on your business, not in it." I wish it were that simple, but you'd struggle to point to me examples of where that's true. It's a transition period. If you want to look at Warren Buffett, if you want to look at Bezos, if you want to look at like Elon, like he says as though first name terms, right? It's like these people are engaged in the business. They're on the factory floor. They may not be building computers or writing code anymore, but they're still engaged. But the point is, you've only got so much time.
Yeah.
How do you stay focused on the vital activities? So there's functionally, you've got to do HR, you've got to do all this stuff. But if you get bogged down in the stuff that's functional, that needs to be done, but somebody could be hired to do, what does it cost you? It costs you the loss, the upside of the strategic insights. So in fact, Toby, you said it in a different context off this call, but speak to what you were just saying about the Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said about his strategy, because I think this ties in perfectly to this point.
Yeah, his investment strategy is lethargic, bordering on sloth, is what he said.
Right. And a lot of people hear that and don't know what it means. But let me tell you what it means. It means that if he shares what he does on a weekly basis, he's basically got almost nothing in his diary. He goes to the office every day and he reads. What does he read? Company reports. So he's reading in the market and about what the businesses in the market, how they're doing, how they're performing, and he's thinking and he's reflecting and he's looking for opportunities. So in other words, he's doing nothing to do really with operational stuff. Right? Now, don't get me wrong. He does need to do a meeting for all the shareholders, which he does every year.
But that's not functional. That's vital. He has to do it. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, but in relative terms, so he's still wearing the CEO hat. But in relative terms, if he got distracted at more detail or spent 10 times the amount of time in those functional tasks, he would miss out on the opportunities where he's vital. It's vital because A, only he can do it, or he's uniquely skilled at doing it, and B, that's where all the upside is.
Yeah.
Right? So, said a different way, most business owners in your industry, there are people that are scraping by and breaking even, and there's other businesses which are making a shed ton of cash. And the difference is not primarily how well the operational jobs, the functional tasks are being done. That's a factor, but it's not the factor. The difference is typically strategic positions, plays, etc. That's what Warren spends his time looking for the strategic moves, the companies to invest in, etc. The things that move the needle. So you're not, as Tony Robbins would say, majoring in minor things, right?
Yeah.
That's what this session is about. How do we make you more effective?
Yeah. And you've got a brilliant strategy on how to actually decipher between what is merely functional versus what is the vital tasks, and then creating a powerful game plan to offshoot and offset much of those functional things so you can stay in the area and do those things that are vital.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Topher, because I'm certain, so we haven't prepped this, you have no idea what I'm about to say, but I am certain you will fall typically, as a lot of our listeners will do, but it'll be easier for me to use you as a demo subject than to explain it and have them not listen, but them hearing you do it, they'll see themselves.
I'm glad I have the power of editing these videos, because this
we're going to be good. So Topher, how many hours? So this will be true. They'll relate to it, but don't worry, it's not. I won't be committing defamation anyway. You might commit it on yourself, but that's another matter.
Yes.
So how many hours do you work in a typical week, Topher, in terms of time, business activities of any description, strategic or tactical? Like, how many hours are you working in a typical week?
Typically, easily between 50 to 60. No question.
Yeah, great. If you'd ask me to guess, I would say the typical answer that I hear, so the listeners of this podcast, is exactly that. They probably say 60. Sometimes people say 80. Occasionally, some people are really tight, 40. But you know what? 50 to 60, very typical. Okay, great. Next question. Everybody listening, I want you to answer this, but I could write it down now, because you might not be watching the video version of this podcast. Topher, of all that time spent, how much of that time was spent on the vital, i.e. the highest value activities? Or say a different way, and it's a bit subjective, I admit.
Yeah.
What proportion of your time of that 50 hours or that 60 hours was truly productive? Either in percentage terms or in terms of number of hours. How many times were you absolutely on point?
Yeah, it's embarrassing for me to say this, but I don't mind being transparent and open, because I also know the strategy on how you identify this. I will tell you, and I'm ashamed to say it, by the way, but I guarantee you 3% to 5% is done doing the vital.
Great.
I hate to admit that. If I were full of myself, I'd say, oh, wait, about half and half. But no, honestly, especially lately, I've been doing
now,
way
to
more
be fair to Topher, for those listening, Topher's typically very hard on himself, so it might not be that bad. The typical range that people will tell me, Topher, is 5 to 15%.
Yeah.
Right? So now some people say, no, 50% of the time, truly productive. Some people will say numbers like yours, like low single digit percentages. But I'd say 5 to 15% is truly productive. But some people typically go 50, 60%. Rare is it more than that. And you go, okay, so let's take the extreme high, not even the average. Let's say somebody who says, no, 50% of my time's on the most important things that drive money, that make a big impact, and that I'm on point and I'm effective at it, as in I'm fully engrossed. It's deep work. As the previous mentioned. Correct, as Cal would say. So you're going to go, okay, great. That means half your time is on low-value activities. And if you think about it this way, Topher, 80-20 rule. If 20% of your activities inputs produce 8% of the outputs, for every 1 unit of effort, you produce 4 units of results. Okay, but inverse is also true. 18% of your activities produce 20% of your results, in terms of the value that they add to your company. Right? You're going to go, okay, so for every unit of low-value activity, just to call it that, produces 0.25 of a unit of output. So on the one hand, these activities produce 4 units, and these produce 0.25. So the difference in terms of the return on your time between 0.25 and 4 is 1,600%.
It's crazy,
right?
Isn't it? Yeah.
So logically, the question becomes, well, how do we make you have more of your input time is on those 4x output returns?
Yep.
And a way to achieve that is, how do you eliminate the ones that are giving you the 0.25 returns?
By the way,
and it's a total game changer.
To speak to that, I think the benefit there is a lot of people sit there sometimes and they get in a place where they go, I just don't know how it's going to make a difference. And you just identified how small changes make massive impact if you're making the right small changes.
And that is the question, Topher. So said differently, if we talk about people that are often illustrated as stars on this podcast, people like the Paul Goffs, the Dean Booties, the Laura Roders, so these people that are absolutely crushing it. It wouldn't take much time or energy to go look in their sector and compare them to the competition and go, oh my God, these people are light years ahead.
Yeah.
What do they have in common? And I would tell you, to a T, they are crazy efficient with their time. Now, if Rob or Paul were on here, they would also tell you, well, they're not perfect, like in all people. But the difference between you spending 5% of your time and 50% of your time on these high-value activities is the difference between scraping by a break-even, right, and making multi-seven-figure profits for an awful lot of business owners. Easy to say, not easy to do, but it is significantly helpful if you've got a strategy that helps you flip the switch, right? And so for the people listening to this, obviously, The self-serving answer is come along to CEO Mastermind, come and take one of our guest slots at our next event coming up in September. But if you didn't do that, you're going to go, look, if you went away and analyze how you spent your time and try to double down on those things, you could move the needle, and that could have a disproportionate sized impact.
Yes, no doubt. All right, this next segment is actually kind of two. The lesson is the same on both, right? But the perspective is different. The first section is challenges and opportunities, right? Which is one of our favorite sections at your mastermind. And then the next one is what's working now. But they both have a powerful connection. And that connection is getting the input and the opinions of other people. And that's the strategy for the people listening today, is how many times are you getting expert counsel from outside your company, from people that have no vested interest in you, that can tell you like it is. So, the strategy is once a quarter, are you getting with a group of individuals to share with them either one major challenge that you have or one major opportunity, and getting an outside perspective viewpoint on how to solve that challenge or how to exploit that opportunity. And I think it's one of the most powerful segments in the CEO Mastermind, is just, and it's all because of the people that are in that room, right?
Right,
when you attract external people, you get great results.
Yeah, I mean, for the regular listeners to the podcast, 2 weeks ago, when we spoke about making better business decisions, and the quote the week that we shared was Ray Dalio. And effectively, what prevents people making business decisions, the two things that Ray thinks, and I agree with him, prevent business owners making good decisions, are their ego and their blind spots, which is addressed by these two segments. That's not coincidence, right? As in, your ego gets in the way, right? So which prevents you from hearing. And so it's helpful to see what other people are doing, because it kind of bypasses your ego filter, and you go, oh, look what they're doing. They solved that problem. Oh, maybe that applies to me.
Yeah.
And also, when you get good feedback from other people directly, smart business owners that aren't emotionally caught up in your business, they can help shine a light on your blind spots, and they'll see things that you don't see. And if 100%. You're open to hearing that, holy crap, now you can get a change rather than get stuck on the hamster wheel and stuck in that recurring cycle.
Yeah. And then part two to that, by the way, is it's important to go and get counsel from external people and share with them your challenges, your opportunities. And it's equally important to find out what's working for them, right? So that's the segment called What's Working Now, where we highlight 3 of your exceptional clientele, and they get to share with the audience what's working in their business. And it's so important sometimes to just shut up and to listen and just go, tell me what's working in your business, because you can pick up lessons and hints and tricks and tips from them and apply it to your own business as well.
I know we're out of time, Topher, but should we say about the last one? Because I think the last one's actually the most important.
Yes.
100%. So look, I think this. So there's a quote behind me in my office, and obviously everybody who's a regular listener knows I'm an absolute Warren Buffett fanboy. But anybody that can be I've only about
you only have to listen to 2 episodes to figure that out. Maybe one.
There's only a dozen, I think, centile billionaires, i.e. worth 100 billion plus in the world ever in global history. And Warren Buffett's one of them. And the fact that he can still be there, having given away now, I think it's 90 plus billion, and he's still there, tells you something. You know, so I think pay attention when it's self-made, all self-made. And the quote behind me in my office is, an idiot with a plan can be a genius without a plan.
Yes.
And some people dismiss it or get it being as trite as I know. No, it's in the thinking. People think entrepreneurs, it's all about doing and action. That's bullshit, because there's plenty of entrepreneurs that do an awful lot that are flat out broke and work themselves to death and died broke. It's in the quality of the thinking that allows you to make better decisions. Of course, you've still got to do the action, but it's in the quality of the thinking and planning. Proper planning is how you get your thinking in shape, in order, which makes you effective and helps you anticipate likely problems, nip it in the bud, like the example that I gave you at the start of this podcast. So ultimately, you are going to leave CEO Mastermind with maybe not a complete plan, but certainly the outline, the bare bones of a plan, which will make your chances of following through and delivering on that plan disproportionately high versus if you just went away and winged it. Most business owners never do a proper, well thought through plan. I'm not talking about putting anything on a bit of paper, no, but thinking that goes behind it. But people typically need accountability. So if you don't come along, great, sit down, focus time, get input, write a plan. It will pay value in those activities. It's in the top 20%. Hands down, unequivocally. But the reality is most people struggle to do that. And I actually say, you know what? Like when I pay for coaches, when I, pay still 15 years later, paying Keith Cunningham, a lot of times he doesn't give me a new insight. Yeah. But I know that it holds me accountable and the quality of my input into the plan is significantly higher because I'm putting myself in that environment. So for that date, I'm committed, I'm focused, I get a plan, which leads to better results.
Yeah. Well, and it's the bookend to what we talked about right at the opening of this, which was doing your quarterly review, then bookend it with your quarterly plan for the next quarter. So let's do a quick recap here, right? So powerful strategies that people can take away and walk away with by listening to this podcast. Number one, do a quarterly review every quarter, and don't do it in your business, do it outside into a specifically different environment. Number two, seek counsel from experts in other areas that you're not thinking about, like cybersecurity. Number three, get to a group of people and share with them your challenges and your opportunities and be willing to let them solve your problems faster or exploit your opportunities better. Number four, in that same group, shut up and listen and ask them what's working for them so you can find out and adopt new strategies as well. Number five, be willing to test and implement an effective strategy to what's working in your business and from a marketing perspective and be able to do it in a fast and efficient and timely manner. And then six is to separate in your business what you're doing, which is vital to help grow and scale your company versus merely functional, which chokes the growth of your company, and set up a strategy for how to get rid of those. And number seven, do your quarterly planning as well. So there were 7 specific strategies, all in one quick, tight package.
There you go. So look, guys, if any of those points resonate with you, look at the link in the show notes. Find out about our upcoming CEO Mastermind, where we're going to go in depth on these 7 areas. And if not, still take those points away, take actions on them, and let us know how you're getting on.
Yep.
And that's I think that's it for this week, Topher. So
cool. Wrap us up with your motto.
Yeah, as always, if you want a better business, you need to be a better business owner. You want to be a better business owner? These 7 things.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. 3 things you need to do now. Number 1, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you do not miss an episode. Also, get on over to Amazon to get a copy of my latest book, Turnover is Vanity, Profit is Sanity, 9.5 steps to improving your profits and cash flow. Also, join our Facebook group, the Turnover is Vanity, Profit is Sanity community, to connect with other business owners.